First day on the job at Harrison Enterprises, and I, Sarah Chen, was ready to take on New York. New job, new city, new opportunities. My boss? Leo Harrison. The man, CEO. Sharp, slick, rumored to make deals faster than I could swipe left on a bad date. Everyone in the business world knew his name, and not just for his billions. He had a nickname, you see. The President Afraid of His Wife. Honestly, it sounded like a B-movie title, but hey, rich people and their eccentricities, right? I figured it was just another weird, quirky thing about the one-percenters, probably some elaborate inside joke I hadn't been clued into yet. He seemed normal enough, though. Impeccable suits, eyes that could slice through a budget report like a hot knife through butter. Always calm, always composed. Well, mostly. The first hint that this President Afraid of His Wife thing wasn't just a quirky hashtag came an hour into my shift. His phone buzzed. Not just a regular buzz, it was a special, almost melodious chime that made him freeze mid-sentence. He glanced at the screen, and I swear, the color drained from his face faster than my enthusiasm on a Monday morning. The caller ID simply read, Michelle. He picked it up, murmured a strained, honey, and then he just listened. For a solid 5 minutes. No, scratch that, 10 minutes. He didn't say much, just a lot of, yes, darling, and, of course, sweetheart, interspersed with nervous nods. His forehead glistened slightly. When he finally hung up, he let out a breath like he'd been holding it since the Mesozoic era. He then cleared his throat and resumed our conversation about market analytics as if nothing happened, but his hands, I noticed, trembled ever so slightly as he picked up his pen. "Must be quite a woman, Mrs. Harrison," I mumbled, trying to sound casual, even though my internal monologue was screaming, what in the world just happened? He gave a small, almost imperceptible flinch. "Michelle is very thorough," he said, the words carefully chosen. "She has a keen eye for detail." Yeah, thorough seemed like an understatement. A few days later, a small, elegant box appeared on his desk. No delivery slip, no messenger, just poof, there it was, sitting primly beside his laptop. Inside was a limited edition Mont Blanc pen he'd casually admired in a magazine just 2 days prior. I had barely registered his passing comment, but someone, somehow, remembered. And then, a week after that, a rather fancy tin of shortbread cookies, his absolute favorite from a tiny, obscure bakery miles away, materialized. Again, no note, no delivery person. It was just there. "Ah, Michelle must have sent these," he'd say, a strange, strained smile on his face. "She always knows what I need, always so thoughtful." Honestly, thoughtful felt like the wrong word, more like omniscient. How did she know he'd glanced at that pen, or that he'd had a sudden craving for those specific cookies? Did she have cameras in his brain? My own brain was starting to develop a glitch, making me wonder if there was some kind of psychic connection, or maybe, just maybe, this Michelle Harrison was a wizard. Then there was the lock ritual. Every single evening, before leaving his office, Mr. Harrison would meticulously check the main door lock. Not once, not twice, but at least 3 times. He'd jiggle the handle, pull on the door, and then often, just for good measure, run his palm over the cold metal of the lock. I stood there, clipboard in hand, trying to act like this was perfectly normal behavior for a CEO. He'd finally nod, satisfied, and head for the elevators. One evening, as I gathered my things, moments after he'd left, a faint, almost imperceptible click echoed from his closed office door. My head snapped up. I blanked. The door was definitely closed. He'd locked it. He'd really locked it. My imagination, I told myself, was simply working overtime. Too much true crime podcasts, probably. But still, a little shiver went down my spine. One afternoon, I walked past his half-open office door, meaning to drop off some urgent documents. He was talking on the phone, again to Michelle. His voice was low, almost pleading. Yes, honey, I understand, but just sometimes I wish you weren't so omnipresent. The words hung in the air, a whisper of frustration that sounded almost rebellious. My feet froze. Just then, his phone, which he'd been holding at arm's length, vibrated again, the screen lighting up with Michelle. He visibly jumped, nearly dropping the device, his face going chalk white. He quickly snatched it up, forcing a bright, cheerful, "Hello, darling," into the receiver. My document-dropping mission was instantly aborted. This was definitely not a good time. As the weeks turned, his locking habits expanded. It wasn't just the main office door anymore. The personal restroom inside his office? Locked. The usually open top drawer of his sleek modern desk, where he kept his emergency stash of dark chocolate? Locked. Even the cabinet holding spare printer paper was often found securely fastened. He'd catch my questioning gaze sometimes, offering a weak smile. Michelle's guidelines, you see, he'd explain, a strange tension in his shoulders. Very strict security protocols, can't be too careful. But the way his eyes darted around, the way his jaw would clench ever so slightly, it told a different story. It wasn't about security. It was about something far more personal, a kind of invisible chain tightening around him. He was becoming a prisoner in his own office, slowly but surely. Later, over lukewarm coffee in the break room, I found myself confiding in an older colleague, Carol, about my boss. "Honestly, Carol," I started, "Mr. Harrison talks to his wife on the phone, but sometimes it's like he's having a monologue. I swear I never hear anyone on the other end." Carol just stirred her coffee, her expression as flat as day-old soda. "Oh, that," she said with a shrug. "Michelle Harrison, you know, powerful woman. She probably just puts him on speaker and gets on with her own work while Leo gives his little reports. It's a classic power move, honey. Makes them feel like they're in charge, even when they're not even listening." A power move? Carol's casual explanation, delivered with such nonchalance, somehow made the whole situation even weirder. It was like everyone knew what was happening, but they just accepted it as the way things are with the Harrison power couple. But something about it just didn't sit right with me. A strange, unsettling feeling started to grow in my gut, a nagging suspicion that what I was seeing, what everyone was dismissing as normal, was anything but. It felt like I was watching a silent, slow-motion disaster unfold, and no one else seemed to notice the cracks appearing in the facade. The more I observed, the more I realized Leo Harrison wasn't just afraid of his wife, he was running from something that wasn't quite there, but was everywhere. And that, my friends, was a whole new level of creepy. The air in the office started feeling thicker than a New York cheesecake factory after lunch, and not in a good way. It was the kind of thick that clung to your skin, making you want to peel it off. Mr. Harrison, bless his perfectly tailored suits, was on another level of frantic. His anniversary was coming up, and apparently it was a bigger deal than the Super Bowl, the Met Gala, and my Monday morning coffee combined. He was obsessed with making it perfect, which usually meant asking me to pull up venue options, then calling Michelle, then scrapping half the list because, gasp, the ballroom was too beige. Like, seriously? Beige is a classic, people. Then it was the guest list. He'd meticulously type out 100 names, then get a call from Michelle, and suddenly half the list was out, replaced by people I'd never heard of, only for those new names to vanish the next day. Michelle prefers a more intimate gathering, he'd explain, his voice a tight string on a cheap violin. Or maybe a grand affair, she hasn't quite decided. My internal monologue was basically a full-blown sitcom at this point. Hasn't quite decided? Honey, it's a party, not a choose-your-own-adventure novel. I started noticing weird things on his computer. I'd send over the updated guest list, and an hour later, I'd glance at his screen and see Mr. Davis Smith had morphed into Mr. Davis Smith. Or the menu for a sit-down dinner would suddenly list gourmet hot dogs as the main course. I'd mention it, all innocent-like, and he'd just sigh, blame a system glitch, or sometimes, bless his heart, even apologize for my supposed typo. He'd correct it, then I'd see it switch back an hour later. My eyebrows were doing Olympic gymnastics trying to stay put.
Who was doing this? Was it a ghost in the machine? Or was Michelle Harrison literally hacking his computer to mess with him? If so, that's next-level commitment to chaos, and honestly, a little impressive. The more these shenanigans happened, the more I got this creepy, crawly feeling about Mrs. Harrison. I mean, everyone talked about her like she was some titan of industry, but when I tried to look her up online, her public profile was thinner than my patience on a Monday. There were a few blurry photos, some vague mentions of philanthropic endeavors, and a lot of dead links. It was like she was a legend, but one without any actual proof. Was she some kind of super-secret agent? Or maybe she just preferred to keep a low profile? My gut, though, was screaming that something was super off. One afternoon, I brought in some more venue brochures. Mr. Harrison was slumped over his desk, staring intently at a framed photo. It was an old, faded picture from college, him and a bunch of grinning kids, probably during some spring break trip or something. He pointed to a girl with long, dark hair, standing right next to him, laughing. "That's Michelle," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Taken during our senior year. She was always so vibrant." I leaned in, just to be polite, and I swear, for a microsecond, the girl's face in the photo shimmered. It wasn't quite her. It was a fleeting, almost transparent blur, like someone had photoshopped a different, slightly unfamiliar face over it for a split second, then snapped it back. My eyes probably did a double take that would win an award. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Nope, it was the same girl, just faded by time. Must be my imagination, I told myself, chalking it up to too much screen time and not enough sleep. But the image stuck in my head, a little glitch in my mental matrix. He then started reminiscing, not really to me, but to the photo. I remember, after the accident, when I was in the hospital, she was there, always, took charge of everything, made sure the press was kept away, the doctors knew what they were doing, told me not to worry, that she'd handle everything, said I just needed to focus on getting better. He closed his eyes, a strange, distant look on his face. She said, "Leo, my darling, just rest. Let me take care of it all. You're safe with me." And then it happened, right there, standing in his office. I saw it. A tremor ran through his whole body, his eyes still closed, squeezed tighter. It was like he was hearing it again, but not just hearing. He flinched, almost imperceptibly, as if someone had just whispered those words directly into his ear. But the voice wasn't Michelle's. It was softer, higher, but with a weird, almost metallic edge to it. A chill, like someone had opened a freezer door in July, snaked its way up my spine. He opened his eyes, looking around the room, utterly disoriented. Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Hear what, Mr. Harrison?" I asked, trying to sound calm, though my own heart was doing a drum solo. He just shook his head, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. Nothing. Just tired, I guess. He closed his eyes again, pressed the heels of his palms against them. A faint, sweet scent suddenly drifted through the air. Lavender. It was light, almost like a ghostly perfume. I sniffed, trying to pinpoint it. It reminded me of those little sachets my grandma used to put in her linen closet. But why now? And why so strong, yet so ephemeral? Meanwhile, these weird sounds had become a regular office soundtrack. Sometimes I'd be at my desk and I'd hear a faint, drawn-out whisper coming from his office, like someone was sharing a deep secret with the empty executive chair. Other times, I'd hear the distinctive chime of his special Michelle ringtone, but his phone would be sitting silently on his desk. My head would snap up, and he'd be frozen, tilting his head slightly, listening, before shrugging it off like he just heard the ice cream truck. One afternoon, I was walking past his door, which was open a crack, and I heard the unmistakable click-clack of high heels tapping on the marble floor inside. But the thing was, Mr. Harrison was on a call in his private meeting room, and I was pretty sure no one else was supposed to be in there. I paused, listened. The footsteps stopped. Then, after a moment, they started again, moving towards the door.
I held my breath, totally braced for Michelle Harrison herself to sashay out. But then, nothing. The sounds just evaporated. The hallway was empty, eerily still. My brain was just like, nope, I'm done. This is not normal. This is not fine. Mr. Harrison wasn't just afraid of his wife. He was totally being haunted. And not by the kind of ghost that just moves furniture around. This one was playing psychological mind games, whispering in his ear, changing documents, and making him question his own sanity. And the truly messed up part? He wasn't even aware of what he was running from. He thought it was Michelle. But I was starting to think Michelle was just a name, a stand-in for something much, much creepier. Something that had been with him since that car accident. And as the scent of lavender seemed to linger a little too long in the air, I had a sinking feeling that whatever it wasn't going anywhere. And neither, apparently, was I. The anniversary party. Oh boy, the anniversary party. I swear, the air in the grand ballroom of the Obsidian Hotel was so thick with tension, you could probably spread it on a cracker. It wasn't the champagne bubbles or the expensive perfume. It was Mr. Harrison, standing there, looking like a statue that was about 2 seconds away from shattering into a million pieces. He was trying his best to look calm, doing the CEO thing. Standing tall, a little too stiff, with that practiced half-smile that barely touched his eyes. His eyes were darting around, though, like a fly trapped in a very fancy spiderweb. Every time a waiter walked past, every time a glass clinked, his shoulders would tense, just a fraction. From my spot near the fruit display, because priorities, I watched him. My stomach felt like it was doing gymnastics. I had this really bad feeling, the kind that makes the little hairs on your arms stand up straight like they just heard a ghost story. Something big, something really bad was about to happen. I could feel it in my bones, and my bones usually only feel the need for a comfy couch and some Netflix. The party was a blur of polite chatter and sparkling wine, but for me, it was all about Leo. Every one of his jerky movements, every time he checked his phone, which was like every 30 seconds, just screamed that he was holding on by a thread. I couldn't blame him, not after all the weirdness in the office. The vanishing Michelle, the phantom footsteps, the lavender scent that would pop up out of nowhere like a weird magic trick. It was getting to me, honestly. I'd started triple-checking my locks at home, and once I almost asked my cat if she heard anything. Yeah, I know, not my proudest moment. Then David Lee appeared. David, or as Mr. Harrison sometimes called him, Davy from college. He was a big guy, a little rough around the edges, with a laugh that could probably shatter glass. He walked right up to Leo, clapped him on the back with enough force to send a normal human into orbit, and started yapping away. "Leo, my man, look at you, all fancy pants. Happy anniversary, buddy." David boomed, completely oblivious to the fact that Leo looked like he wanted to dissolve into thin air. Leo managed another one of those strained smiles. "David, good to see you. Thanks for coming." His voice sounded like gravel, like he hadn't used it properly in days. They exchanged pleasantries for a bit, talking about old college days, the usual reunion stuff. My ears were perked, of course. This was my boss, my mystery, my weird little side project that had turned into a full-blown obsession. I needed answers, or at least some confirmation that I wasn't losing my mind. But then Leo, bless his poor, stressed-out soul, started talking about her, his wife. He needed a distraction, I guess, or maybe he just couldn't help himself. He always defaulted to her, like a strange comfort blanket. You know, David, Leo began, a strange, distant look clouding his eyes. It's funny, people call me the wife-fearing president, and honestly, I used to hate it. But now, he chuckled, a dry, hollow sound. Now I just accept it. It's just the way things are. David just nodded, taking a big gulp of champagne. Yeah, heard that nickname floating around. But hey, Michelle's a force, right? Good for you, man. Keeping you on your toes. Leo leaned in, his voice dropping, like he was sharing a secret. She really is. I remember. After the accident, that really bad one, I almost didn't make it. It was chaos. But she was there, right there, by my side. He waved a hand vaguely, as if dispelling smoke. She just took charge of everything. The doctors, the press, my family, told me not to worry about a thing, said she'd handle it. Michelle, my rock. She's always been the powerful one. That's why, I always defer to her. She's the one who controls everything, he finished, looking directly at David, as if seeking validation, or perhaps convincing himself. I was holding my breath, my grip on my champagne flute tighter than a miser's wallet. This was it, the story he always clung to, the foundation of his whole wife-fearing persona. David listened, his brows furrowed. He took another long sip of his champagne, then slowly lowered the glass. His eyes, usually so jovial, narrowed slightly. A flicker of confusion, concern, crossed his face. Then David, bless his blunt, unfiltered heart, casually cut in. No drama, no grand revelation, just a simple, straightforward statement that hit like a wrecking ball. Leo, David said, his voice completely level, almost too calm. He even sounded a little apologetic, like he was correcting a minor factual error in a conversation. Buddy, are you still mixing that up? Michelle was never there. Come on, man. The only one with you that day, the only one by your side when your car went off the road, was Chloe Young. My breath hitched. Chloe Young. The name felt like a phantom limb, a memory I knew but couldn't quite place, yet it resonated with something deep and unsettling. David continued, his gaze softening with a kind of sad pity. Our classmate, remember? She was driving you back from that crazy party. She didn't make it, Leo. She died at the scene. You had a severe concussion, man. Hit your head pretty bad. You must be remembering wrong, buddy. That whole thing, Michelle being there, taking charge, that never happened. The words hung in the air, heavy and cold. Michelle was never there. A single, devastating sentence. It wasn't accusatory. It wasn't malicious. It was just a fact. A fact that just wiped Leo's entire reality off the map. I watched Leo's face. It was already pale from the stress of the party, but now every last drop of color drained from it. His eyes, which had been fixed on David, suddenly went vacant, distant. They drifted past David, past the sparkling chandeliers, past me. And that's when it happened. His phone, which he was clutching in his hand like a lifeline, buzzed. A single sharp vibration that echoed in the silence of my mind. The screen lit up. A new message from Michelle Harrison. I squinted, trying to make out the words from my distance. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The message read, "Don't forget your favorite dessert." A simple, sweet reminder. But in that moment, in that place, after David's innocent bombshell, it was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. Leo's eyes, empty and unseeing, flickered from David to the message on his phone, then slowly, agonizingly slowly, to the empty chair beside him, the one he always insisted on keeping clear. His hand, still holding the vibrating phone, froze midair. A single bead of cold sweat, shiny under the ballroom lights, snaked its way down his temple, tracing a path down his cheek. He didn't scream. He didn't drop the phone. He didn't run. He didn't even make a sound. He just stood there, utterly still, a human statue of pure, silent horror. His entire world, all those carefully constructed explanations, every single reason he gave for his life, for his fear, for his wife, it all imploded right there. In his mind, I knew, it was a silent, catastrophic collapse, a supernova of shattered truth. If not Michelle, I imagined his mind screaming, even though his lips didn't move, then that warm hand, that comforting whisper that kept telling me everything would be okay in the chaos of the accident, what was that? And who has been sending those messages all these years? The air in the ballroom seemed to thicken again, but this time it wasn't just tension. It was the crushing weight of a horrifying, unanswerable question, a question that had just been unleashed, a monster in the shadows, finally stepping into the light, and it was looking right at Leo.